The journey to the designated meeting point was long and quiet, though the silence aboard the Odyssey felt heavy with unspoken fears. The asteroid field where humanity's fate would be decided lay at the edge of contested space, a desolate region filled with jagged rocks and swirling clouds of dust. It wasn't a place anyone would choose for a peaceful negotiation, but then again, this mission wasn't about peace, at least not yet. Captain Laura Bennett spent most of the trip pacing the narrow corridors of her ship, lost in thought. She replayed the Council's orders over and over in her mind, searching for answers that weren't there. Why had they chosen the Odyssey? What did they mean by unique capabilities? The ship was old, its systems outdated, and its crew small compared to the massive teams aboard other vessels. Yet here they were, tasked with representing all of humanity against an alien armada. Laura tried to push these questions aside and focus on what mattered: survival. Whatever happened next, she knew one thing for certain. The Kryn wouldn't go easy on them. These creatures were cunning, ruthless, and driven by motives no human could fully understand. Every encounter with the Kryn had ended in bloodshed, or uneasy truces, never true peace. This time might be different, or it might be worse. Either way, Laura had to prepare her crew for anything. Chief Engineer Daniel Parks worked tirelessly in the engine room, his hands moving deftly over panels and wires. He muttered to himself as he patched up weak spots in the ship's aging systems, sweat dripping down his face. "This bucket of bolts is gonna fall apart if we don't get lucky," he grumbled, tightening a bolt with more force than necessary. Still, he refused to give up. If anyone could keep the Odyssey running under pressure, it was Daniel. His dedication gave the rest of the crew hope, even if they didn't say it out loud. Lieutenant Emily Ross sat at her station on the bridge, headphones clamped tightly over her ears as she monitored communications. The Kryn fleet was still far away, but their transmissions filled the airwaves, sharp clicks and hums that made her skin crawl. She adjusted dials and filters, trying to piece together fragments of information. Occasionally, she caught snippets of translated messages, hints of orders being relayed between ships. The Kryn were organized, disciplined, and ready for battle. Emily couldn't help but feel a chill run down her spine every time she heard their voices. Pilot Ryan Carter, meanwhile, kept his eyes fixed on the navigation screen as he guided the Odyssey through the void of space. Flying a ship like this wasn't glamorous. It required patience, precision, and nerves of steel. Ryan had all three in spades. He'd been with Laura since the beginning, trusting her judgment even when others doubted her. As he plotted the course to the asteroid field, he glanced over his shoulder at her. "You okay, Captain?" he asked quietly. Laura nodded, though her expression betrayed her unease. "As okay as I can be," she replied. "Just stay sharp, all right? We're going to need everyone at their best." Ryan gave her a reassuring smile. "Always am." When the Odyssey finally reached the asteroid field, the sight before them was both awe-inspiring and terrifying. The Kryn fleet loomed ahead, their ships arranged in perfect formation like a swarm of metallic insects. Each vessel gleamed ominously in the dim light of distant stars, their weapons pointed outward like stingers ready to strike. There were hundreds of them, maybe even thousands, stretching farther than the eye could see. Against such overwhelming numbers, the Odyssey looked insignificant, a speck of dust floating in the vastness of space. Laura ordered the ship to hold position near the edge of the asteroid field, just close enough to signal their presence without appearing aggressive. She activated the comms system and broadcast a message of peaceful intent. Her voice was calm but firm as she spoke. "This is Captain Laura Bennett of the Odyssey. We come in response to your arrival. Our goal is dialogue, not conflict." For several tense minutes, there was no reply. The silence weighed heavily on the crew, each second stretching longer than the last. Then finally, a transmission came through. It was garbled at first, filled with static and strange tones, but Lieutenant Emily managed to clean it up enough. To translate. "They've acknowledged us," Emily said, turning to Laura. "They're asking why we sent this." She gestured vaguely at the modest interior of the Odyssey, clearly unsure how to phrase the insult embedded in the Kryn's words. Laura smirked despite herself. "Tell them we chose quality over quantity." Emily hesitated for a moment, then relayed the message. A few seconds later, another response crackled through the speakers. This time, it was accompanied by movement among the Kryn fleet. One of their ships detached from the main group and began approaching cautiously, its sleek form gliding smoothly through the debris of the asteroid field. "They're sending an envoy," Emily reported. "Looks like they want to talk." Laura took a deep breath, steadying herself. "All right, everyone. Stay alert. Let's show them we're not afraid." A short while later, the Kryn envoy ship docked with the Odyssey, extending a boarding tube that hissed as it connected. Armed guards escorted a single figure onto the Odyssey's deck. The creature towered over the humans, its exoskeleton shimmering faintly in the artificial light. Its multifaceted eyes scanned the room, taking in every detail. Finally, it stopped in front of Laura, tilting its head slightly as if studying her. "I am Zix-7, the creature said, its voice translated into halting mechanical English. "Your species is peculiar. Why do you gamble your survival on such insignificance?" Laura met Zix-7's gaze without flinching. "Because significance isn't measured by size or power," she replied evenly. "It's measured by resolve." Zix-7 clicked its mandibles thoughtfully, the sound echoing in the confined space. "Resolve alone cannot stop an armada. Explain." "Your choice." Laura hesitated, choosing her words carefully. "We believe in strength through unity. Sending one ship shows that we trust each other, that we stand together, even when the odds are against us. It's not about the vessel, it's about the people aboard it." The Kryn envoy tilted its head again, as if processing this concept. Humans were unpredictable, yes, but also intriguing. Perhaps there was more to them than met the eye. As negotiations continued, Laura learned the truth behind the Kryn invasion. They weren't seeking territory or resources. They were searching for something far greater. According to ancient legends, a powerful artifact existed somewhere within human-controlled space. This artifact was said to grant immense knowledge and control over reality itself. The Kryn believed humanity either possessed it or knew its location. Their entire campaign hinged on finding it. Laura listened intently, masking her shock. She realized now why the Council had chosen the Odyssey. Decades earlier, the ship had been part of a classified expedition to explore ancient ruins on a distant moon. During that mission, fragments of the very artifact the Kryn sought had been discovered. While the larger pieces were locked away, in secure vaults, a smaller fragment had been stored aboard the Odyssey as a failsafe, a decision known only to a select few. Confronted with this revelation, Laura faced a daunting choice. Handing over the fragment meant giving the Kryn unimaginable power, potentially dooming countless worlds. Yet refusing outright risked triggering an immediate attack that humanity couldn't hope to survive. She needed a plan, and fast. While Zix-7 waited for her response, Laura signaled for her crew to gather discreetly. Together they discussed possible strategies. Daniel suggested using the fragment's energy to disrupt the Kryn's sensors, creating confusion long enough for reinforcements to arrive. Emily proposed broadcasting false signals to mislead the enemy fleet. Ryan offered to pilot the Odyssey into the heart of the asteroid field, using its natural cover to evade detection. Laura considered each option carefully before settling on a combination of ideas. "We'll use the fragment's energy to create interference," she explained. "But instead of staying hidden, we'll make sure they see us first. Make them think we're bluffing confidence." Her crew nodded, understanding the risks involved. If the plan failed, they'd be surrounded with nowhere to run. But if it worked, they might buy humanity enough time to regroup and fight back. With preparations underway, Laura turned back to Zix-7. "We don't have what you're looking for," she lied smoothly, "but we're willing to negotiate further. Show us you're serious about peace, and we'll share whatever knowledge we can." The Kryn envoy regarded her silently for a moment, its glowing eyes unreadable. Then, with a sharp click, it turned and departed, returning to its ship. Moments later, the envoy vessel disengaged from the Odyssey and rejoined the main fleet. As the Kryn retreated slightly, Laura allowed herself a brief sigh of relief. Phase 1 of the plan was complete. Now came the hard part, executing the rest without getting everyone killed. Back on the bridge, the crew exchanged nervous glances. They knew the real challenge was just beginning. Outnumbered and outgunned, they had only their wits and courage to rely on. But as Laura stood tall, her determination unwavering, they found strength in her example. Whatever happened next, they would face it together. And so, amid the cold silence of space, the Odyssey prepared for the greatest gamble of all. In the year 2347, humanity stood at the edge of a great and terrible storm. For decades, Earth had managed to keep a fragile peace with the Kryn, an alien coalition that ruled over vast stretches of space. The Kryn were not like humans. They were tall, insect-like creatures with shimmering exoskeletons and eyes that glowed faintly in the dark. They spoke in clicks and hums, their language translated through machines. Though they had never openly declared war on humanity, their presence was always felt, a looming shadow over human expansion into the stars. For years, Earth's leaders debated how best to deal with the Kryn. Some argued for diplomacy, hoping to find common ground despite their differences. Others pushed for military buildup, convinced that conflict was inevitable. In the end, humanity chose both paths, building massive fleets while sending diplomats to negotiate treaties. But now, all those efforts seemed to be falling apart. The Kryn fleet appeared without warning near Proxima Centauri, one of the closest star systems to Earth. Hundreds of ships emerged from the void of space, their sleek angular designs cutting through the darkness like blades. Each vessel bristled with weapons capable of tearing planets apart. It was clear what the Kryn wanted: to conquer and dominate. Humanity's time for preparation had run out. On board the flagship Eclipse, Admiral Jonathan Hale paced back and forth across the command deck. His face was lined with worry, his hands clasped tightly behind his back. Around him, officers worked frantically at their stations, relaying reports and coordinating defensive strategies. The room buzzed with tension as everyone realized the gravity of the situation. This wasn't just another skirmish or border dispute. It was the beginning of a full-scale invasion. Admiral Hale turned to his communications officer. "Have we received any word from Earth yet?" he asked gruffly. "Yes, sir," came the reply. "They're assembling reinforcements, but it will take days for the rest of the fleet to reach us." Hale cursed under his breath. Days might as well have been years when facing an enemy as powerful as the Kryn. He glanced at the main view screen, where the enemy fleet loomed larger with each passing second. There had to be a way to hold them off until help arrived. But how? Outnumbered and outgunned, the odds were stacked heavily against them. Meanwhile, far away from the chaos of the eclipse, Captain Laura Bennett sat quietly on the bridge of her own ship, the Odyssey. Compared to the mighty battleships around her, the Odyssey was tiny, barely more than a scout vessel. Its hull bore scratches and dents from years of service, and its engines groaned under the strain of keeping pace with the rest of the fleet. Yet, despite its modest appearance, the Odyssey held a special place in Laura's heart. She had commanded it for nearly a decade, guiding it through countless missions and earning the loyalty of her crew along the way. Laura was different from many of the other captains in the fleet. While others relied on brute force and overwhelming firepower, she preferred subtlety and strategy. Her philosophy was simple. Sometimes the best way to win wasn't by hitting harder, but by thinking smarter. Unfortunately, this approach often left her at odds with higher-ranking officers like Admiral Hale, who believed strength was the only thing that mattered. As the fleet gathered near Proxima Centauri, Laura listened intently to the chatter coming through her comms system. Reports poured in about the size and composition of the Kryn fleet, painting a grim picture. Everyone knew what was coming next. A pitched battle that would likely cost thousands of lives. Laura clenched her fists, feeling a mix of anger and helplessness. Was there no other option? Then, unexpectedly, orders came down from Earth's governing council. What happened next shocked everyone aboard the fleet. Instead of launching a coordinated attack with all available ships, the council issued a new directive. Only one vessel would represent humanity in this encounter, and to everyone's astonishment, it wasn't the Eclipse or any other state-of-the-art cruiser, it was the Odyssey. News of the decision spread quickly, sparking outrage among the senior officers. Admiral Hale practically exploded when he heard the news. "You're sending a glorified tin can against an armada?" he shouted into the comms channel. "This is madness! We need every ship we've got if we're going to stand a chance." But the council remained firm. Their reasoning was vague at best, citing something about diplomacy, strategy, and the Odyssey's unique capabilities. No one could make sense of it, least of all Laura herself. When the order reached her, she simply nodded and accepted it. There was no time to argue or question the logic behind the decision. All she could do was prepare her crew for whatever lay ahead. Laura called her team together on the bridge. Chief Engineer Daniel Parks leaned against a console, wiping grease-stained hands on his uniform. Lieutenant Emily Ross adjusted her headset, ready to monitor communications. Pilot Ryan. Carter sat casually in his chair, spinning it slightly as he waited for instructions. These were the people Laura trusted most, the ones who had been with her through thick and thin. "Listen up," Laura began, her voice steady despite the turmoil inside her. "We've been given a mission unlike anything we've faced before. The Kryn are here, and instead of throwing our entire fleet at them, Earth has chosen us, the Odyssey, to handle this alone." A murmur rippled through the group. Daniel raised an eyebrow. "Us? Against that?" he said, jerking his thumb toward the view screen where the Kryn fleet hung ominously in space. "That's right," Laura replied. "I don't know why they picked us, and frankly, I don't care. What matters is that we do our job. If we play this smart, maybe, just maybe, we can pull it off." Her calm demeanor helped ease some of the tension, though doubt still lingered in everyone's minds. How could a single outdated ship possibly stand against such overwhelming odds? Laura didn't have all the answers, but she knew one thing for certain. Giving up wasn't an option. Not now, not ever. Over the next few hours, the Odyssey prepared for departure. Daniel worked tirelessly to ensure the ship's aging systems functioned properly, running diagnostics and patching up weak spots. Emily monitored incoming transmissions, piecing together fragments of information about the Kryn fleet. Ryan plotted a course to the designated meeting point, an isolated asteroid field at the edge of contested territory. As the Odyssey broke away from the rest of the fleet, Laura took a moment to reflect. Staring out at the vast expanse of stars, she couldn't help but feel a pang of fear. The weight of responsibility pressed down on her shoulders. If she failed, it wouldn't just be her crew who suffered. It would be all of humanity. But alongside the fear was something else: determination. Whatever happened next, she vowed to give it everything she had. And so, with engines humming and hearts pounding, the Odyssey set off into the unknown. Ahead lay danger, uncertainty, and perhaps even death. But also hope, a fragile, flickering light in the darkness. For better or worse, the fate of humanity rested in the hands of a single, unassuming ship and its steadfast captain. Months passed since the day Earth stood united against an alien invasion. The scars of war were still visible, but humanity's determination to rebuild and move forward never wavered. Cities that had been reduced to rubble began to rise again, brick by brick, steel by steel. People worked tirelessly, driven by a shared sense of purpose. It wasn't just about restoring what had been lost. It was about creating something stronger, better, and more resilient. In Washington, D.C., President Laura Hayes presided over meetings with leaders from around the world. Together, they formed the Global Unity Council, an organization dedicated to fostering cooperation among nations. The Council's primary goal was to ensure that humanity would never again face such a threat unprepared. Plans were drawn up for advanced defense systems, early warning networks, and international response teams trained to handle extraterrestrial encounters. For the first time in history, borders seemed less important than the shared mission of protecting Earth. Dr. Emily Carter became one of the Council's most valued advisors. Her expertise in alien technology proved invaluable as scientists continued to study fragments recovered from the destroyed ships. Labs across the globe buzzed with activity as researchers unraveled the mysteries of these artifacts. What they discovered was astonishing. Materials capable of generating limitless energy, propulsion systems far beyond human understanding, and medical devices that could repair injuries at a cellular level. These breakthroughs offered hope for a brighter future, but they also carried risks. Carter often reminded her colleagues, "With great power comes great responsibility. We must use this knowledge wisely." One evening, as Carter sat in her office reviewing data, she received an unexpected visitor, Captain Daniel Harper. Though retired from active duty, Harper remained deeply involved in Earth's security efforts. He now served as a consultant for the Council, offering insights based on his experiences during the war. "Still burning the midnight oil?" Harper asked, leaning against the doorway. Carter smiled faintly. "Someone has to keep an eye on these geniuses," she replied, gesturing toward the rows of monitors displaying complex equations and schematics. "Besides, I can't sleep knowing how much work is left to do." Harper entered the room and pulled up a chair. "You've done enough already. Let the others take some of the load." Carter shook her head. "This isn't just my burden, it's everyone's. Every discovery we make brings us closer to ensuring this never happens again." Harper nodded thoughtfully. "True. But don't forget to take care of yourself. You're no good to anyone if you burn out." Their conversation turned to updates on global recovery efforts. Harper shared news of new training programs for military personnel, designed to prepare them for potential future conflicts with extraterrestrial forces. Carter spoke of ongoing experiments with alien materials, including attempts to replicate their energy sources sustainably. Meanwhile, Lieutenant Samantha Brooks found herself adjusting to life after the war. Promoted to colonel, she now oversaw a squadron tasked with testing next-generation aircraft equipped with alien-inspired technology. These planes were faster, more agile, and capable of withstanding extreme conditions. Brooks took pride in mentoring young pilots, teaching them not only technical skills but also the importance of teamwork and perseverance. On weekends, Brooks visited schools and community centers, speaking to children about courage and resilience. She told stories of the war, emphasizing how ordinary people had risen to extraordinary challenges. "You don't have to be a soldier to make a difference," she often said. "Sometimes it's the smallest acts of kindness that matter most." Back in Los Angeles, Frank Adams, the retired mechanic who had joined civilian militias during the invasion, became a local hero. He helped organize rebuilding efforts in his neighborhood, using his skills to repair damaged homes and vehicles. His garage became a hub of activity where neighbors gathered to share tools, resources, and ideas. Adams believed strongly in self-reliance, but he also understood the value of community. "We're all in this together," he liked to say. "No one gets left behind." As Reconstruction progressed, so did efforts to honor those who had sacrificed everything. Memorials sprang up in cities worldwide, bearing the names of soldiers, scientists, and civilians who had given their lives to protect Earth. In Colorado Springs, a statue of Lieutenant Brooks's squadron was erected outside the airbase, where they had fought their final battle. Inscribed at its base were the words, "Courage knows no bounds." President Hayes traveled extensively, visiting affected regions to offer support and encouragement. During one trip to Tokyo, she met with engineers working to restore the city's skyline. When asked how long full recovery might take, Hayes responded, "It won't happen overnight, but with patience and persistence, we'll get there, together." Her optimism resonated deeply with people everywhere. Though grief lingered, there was also a growing sense of pride. Humanity had faced annihilation and emerged victorious, not through brute force, but through unity and ingenuity. This realization inspired countless initiatives aimed at fostering peace, equality, and sustainability. In Nevada, the site of the Quantum Annihilator's activation became a pilgrimage destination. Visitors came from all over the world to reflect on the events of that fateful night. Some left messages of gratitude, others simply stood in silence, overwhelmed by the magnitude of what had transpired. Among them was Rachel Kim, the young technician, who had worked alongside Dr. Carter during the final hours of the war. Kim returned to the site often, finding comfort in the quiet strength it represented. "It's strange," she once confided to Carter during a visit. "I feel like I should be happy, relieved even. But part of me keeps waiting for the other shoe to drop." Carter placed a reassuring hand on Kim's shoulder. "That fear will fade with time. What matters is that we're here, alive, and ready to build something better. That's our legacy." As years went by, humanity's focus shifted from survival to exploration. Space agencies collaborated on ambitious projects, launching probes and satellites to search for signs of intelligent life beyond Earth. The lessons learned from the alien invasion shaped every decision, emphasizing caution and diplomacy over aggression. One day, while reviewing data from a deep space telescope, scientists detected faint signals emanating from a distant star system. The transmission was fragmented, almost indecipherable, but it hinted at the possibility of another civilization. News of the discovery spread quickly, sparking both excitement and apprehension. Would this new encounter bring friendship or conflict? President Hayes addressed the world once more, urging calm and restraint. "We are not the same people we were before the invasion," she said. "We have grown stronger, wiser, and more united. Whatever lies ahead, we will face it together, with open hearts and minds." For now, humanity waited, watching the stars with a mixture of curiosity and caution. The memory of the alien attack remained etched in collective consciousness, serving as both a warning and a source of inspiration. Earth had proven itself capable of greatness, even in the face of unimaginable odds. And though the future remained uncertain, one thing was clear: humanity would never stop striving for a better tomorrow. After all, 14 minutes had changed everything. 14 minutes had saved Earth, and those moments would forever remind humanity of its boundless potential. The sun rose slowly over the ruins of Earth, casting long shadows across cities that were once bustling with life. The air was thick with smoke and ash, remnants of the alien invasion that had nearly ended humanity. Yet, amidst the devastation, there was a sense of quiet determination. People emerged from shelters and bunkers, their faces weary but resolute. They had survived against impossible odds, and now they faced the daunting task of rebuilding what had been lost. In Washington, D.C. President Laura Hayes stood on the steps of the Capitol building, addressing a crowd of survivors who had gathered to hear her speak. Her voice carried strength despite the exhaustion in her eyes. "Today," she began, "we begin again. We have faced an enemy unlike any we've known before, and we have prevailed. But our journey is far from over. Together, we will rebuild our homes, heal our wounds, and ensure that this never happens again." Her words resonated deeply with those listening. Across the globe, people took solace in the knowledge that they were not alone, that humanity's spirit could not be broken. In Tokyo, workers cleared debris from the streets while engineers assessed damage to the city's infrastructure. In London, volunteers distributed food and supplies to those in need, their acts of kindness offering a glimmer of hope in dark times. And in Los Angeles, neighbors helped each other salvage what they could from the wreckage, determined to start anew. Dr. Emily Carter returned to Cheyenne Mountain, where she oversaw teams studying fragments of alien technology recovered from the destroyed ships. These pieces held secrets that could revolutionize human understanding of science and engineering. Scientists worked tirelessly, analyzing every detail, hoping to unlock advancements in medicine, energy, and space exploration. But Carter also knew that such knowledge came with responsibility. Humanity had narrowly avoided annihilation, could not afford to misuse what it had gained. Captain Daniel Harper spent weeks traveling between military bases and recovery zones, ensuring that security measures remained strong. Though the aliens were gone, he understood the importance of vigilance. Other civilizations might still exist among the stars, and Earth needed to be prepared for whatever came next. Harper often thought about the sacrifices made during the battle. Soldiers who had given their lives to protect others, civilians who had fought bravely despite having no training. Their courage inspired him to keep moving forward, even when the weight of loss felt unbearable. Lieutenant Samantha Brooks returned to Colorado Springs after recovering from injuries sustained during the final assault. She found comfort in spending time with her surviving teammates, sharing stories of those who hadn't made it. Though grief lingered, Brooks refused to let it consume her. Instead, she focused on mentoring young pilots, teaching them lessons learned from the war. "We may have won," she told them, "but victory isn't something you take for granted. It's something you earn every single day." General Matthew Cole played a key role in forming a new global council designed to oversee recovery efforts and prevent future threats. Leaders from every corner of the world came together, setting aside old rivalries to focus on unity. They established programs to rebuild cities, restore power grids, and provide aid to affected populations. For the first time in history, humanity truly acted as one. But the aftermath of the invasion wasn't just about physical rebuilding. It was also about healing emotional wounds. Families mourned, loved ones lost in the conflict, and communities struggled to cope with the trauma of war. Psychologists and counselors worked tirelessly to support those in need, emphasizing the importance of resilience and hope. Slowly but surely, people began to find ways to move forward. President Hayes addressed the United Nations several months later, speaking passionately about the lessons humanity had learned. "This was not just a battle for Earth," she said. "It was a testament to the resilience of the human spirit. When faced with extinction, we chose to fight, not out of hatred or anger, but because we believe in the value of life. We believe in the promise of tomorrow." Her speech earned a standing ovation, not just from world leaders, but from ordinary citizens watching via live broadcasts. People clapped and cheered, tears streaming down their faces as they celebrated the triumph of hope over despair. Earth had been scarred, but it had not been defeated. As time passed, humanity continued to adapt and grow. Advances in technology fueled by alien discoveries led to breakthroughs in renewable energy, allowing cities to rise from the ashes cleaner and more sustainable than before. Medical researchers developed treatments for diseases previously thought incurable, saving countless lives. And space agencies collaborated on ambitious projects aimed at exploring the cosmos, driven by a desire to understand, and perhaps one day communicate, with other intelligent beings. In Nevada, the site where the quantum annihilator had been activated became a memorial. A plaque marked the spot, inscribed with a simple message: "Here, humanity stood united against the unknown. Let this remind us of our strength, our courage, and our capacity to overcome." Visitors often left flowers or notes of gratitude, paying tribute to the sacrifices made to protect Earth. For Dr. Carter, the experience changed her profoundly. She traveled the world, sharing her story and encouraging young minds to pursue careers in science and innovation. "We are capable of amazing things," she often said, "but we must use our knowledge wisely. The future is ours to shape." Captain. Harper eventually retired from active duty, settling into a quieter life with his wife and daughter. He spent his days writing memoirs of the war, documenting the bravery of those who had fought alongside him. His book became a bestseller, inspiring generations to come. Lieutenant Brooks remained in the military, rising through the ranks to become a respected leader. She never forgot the friends she had lost, carrying their memories with her wherever she went. On quiet nights, she would look up at the stars and wonder if there were others out there watching Earth, learning from its example. And somewhere among the stars, distant civilizations observed silently. They saw how humanity had risen from the brink of destruction, how it had banded together to defend its home. Some admired Earth's resilience, others feared it. But all agreed on one thing: humanity was a force to be reckoned with. 14. Minutes had changed everything. 14 minutes had saved Earth. And though the scars of war would remain for decades to come, so too would the lessons learned. Humanity had proven itself capable of greatness, even in the face of unimaginable horror. The quantum annihilator stood at the center of a barren desert in Nevada, its metallic surface gleaming faintly under the pale light of the moon. Around it, technicians and soldiers worked feverishly to ensure everything was ready for activation. The device hummed with an intensity that made the ground vibrate slightly, and the air around it shimmered as if distorted by heat. This was humanity's last chance, a weapon unlike anything ever created, designed to harness quantum energy and unleash forces capable of tearing apart matter at a subatomic level. Dr. Emily Carter stood nearby, her eyes fixed on the machine. She had spent years working on Project Sentinel, pouring every ounce of her knowledge and determination into developing this technology. Now, as she watched the countdown timer tick closer to 0, she felt a mix of fear and hope. If the quantum annihilator worked, it could destroy the alien fleet entirely. But if it failed, Earth would be defenseless, and humanity's fate would be sealed. Captain Daniel Harper stood beside her, his rifle slung over his shoulder. His uniform was torn and stained with dirt and blood from the battles he'd fought to get here. He glanced at Carter, noticing the tension in her face. "You did everything you could," he said softly. "That's all anyone can ask." Carter nodded slowly but didn't respond. Her mind raced with calculations, scenarios, and worst-case possibilities. She knew the risks, knew that activating the device might destabilize not just the alien ships, but also the surrounding area. But there was no other choice. Humanity was out of options. Back in Washington, D.C., President Laura Hayes sat in the Situation Room, staring at live feeds showing the launch site and the ongoing battles across the globe. Her hands were clasped tightly together, her knuckles white from the pressure. General Matthew Cole stood beside her, his expression unreadable. Both of them understood what was at stake. If the quantum annihilator succeeded, Earth would survive. If it failed, There would be nothing left to fight for. "We're almost there," Cole said, glancing at the timer displayed on one of the screens. "Less than 5 minutes." Hayes nodded, her voice barely above a whisper. "Let's hope this works." Across the world, people held their breath. In Tokyo, scientists monitored the EMP systems they had deployed, ensuring they remained active to disrupt alien communications. In London, hackers continued their efforts to jam signals and create confusion among the invaders. And in Los Angeles, civilian militias armed with makeshift weapons fought bravely to protect their neighborhoods, buying precious time for the final plan to unfold. In Colorado Springs, Lieutenant Samantha Brooks led her remaining pilots in another desperate attack against incoming alien ships. Their jets were low on fuel and ammunition, but they refused to give up. Brooks knew the quantum annihilator was about to be activated, and her job was to keep the aliens distracted until then. "All right, team," she said over the comms, her voice steady despite the exhaustion in her voice. "We hit them hard and fast. Don't let them near Nevada." Her squadron responded with determination, diving toward the alien ships and firing their experimental weapons. Explosions lit up the sky as beams of energy clashed, but the aliens kept coming. They seemed relentless, unfazed by the losses they had suffered so far. Brooks gritted her teeth, pushing herself and her team to their limits. Every second counted. At the launch site, the countdown reached its final minute. Technicians scrambled to make last-minute adjustments, while Captain Harper and his soldiers formed a defensive perimeter around the quantum annihilator. Alien drones buzzed overhead, their mechanical whirring growing louder as they closed in. Ground troops advanced too, forcing Harper's team to open fire. "Hold them off!" Harper shouted, aiming his rifle at the approaching enemies. Bullets and energy blasts flew back and forth, creating chaos on the battlefield. The sound of explosions echoed through the desert, drowning out the hum of the quantum annihilator. Inside the control center, Dr. Carter monitored the device's progress. The screen in front of her showed the energy levels climbing rapidly, nearing the critical threshold needed to activate the weapon. She took a deep breath, steadying her nerves. 30 seconds, she called out to the team. The tension in the air was palpable. Everyone knew what was about to happen. If the quantum annihilator worked, it would release a burst of quantum energy powerful enough to collapse the cores of the alien ships. If it failed, the consequences would be catastrophic. 15 seconds, Carter announced, her voice trembling slightly. Harper glanced at the device, then back at his team. "Stay focused. We're almost there." The alien forces intensified their assault, sensing that something big was about to happen. Drones fired relentlessly, and ground troops surged forward, determined to stop the humans. But Harper's soldiers fought back with everything they had, refusing to let the aliens reach the quantum annihilator. 10 seconds, Carter shouted. The countdown continued, each second feeling like an eternity. The hum of the device grew louder, vibrating through the ground beneath their feet. Lights flashed erratically on its surface, signaling that it was almost ready. 5, 4, 3. Carter's voice trailed off as she stared at the screen, her heart pounding in her chest. 2, 1. The quantum annihilator roared to life, releasing a blinding pulse of energy that shot upward into the sky. For a moment, everything went silent. Then, the pulse expanded outward, creating a ripple effect that spread across the atmosphere. Alien ships caught in its path began to shudder violently, their hulls cracking and breaking apart. One by one, the massive vessels imploded, consumed by miniature black holes created by the quantum energy. From orbit, the alien commanders watched in disbelief as their fleet disintegrated before their eyes. Their once mighty armada, which had seemed unstoppable just hours earlier, was being wiped out in mere minutes. Frantic orders were issued to retreat, but it was too late. The chain reaction triggered by the quantum annihilator was unstoppable. On. The ground, Harper and his team shielded their eyes from the blinding light as the pulse swept over them. When it finally faded, they looked up to see the alien ships collapsing into nothingness. Cheers erupted among the soldiers, though many were too exhausted to do more than slump to the ground in relief. In Colorado Springs, Lieutenant Brooks and her pilots cheered as well. The alien ships they had been fighting suddenly lost power and plummeted toward the Earth. It was over. Against all odds, humanity had won. Back in Washington, D.C., President Hayes watched the live feed with tears in her eyes. "It's done," she whispered, turning to General Cole. "They're gone." Cole nodded, his face breaking into a rare smile. "We did it. We actually did it." Across the globe, celebrations broke out wherever people remained. In Tokyo, scientists hugged each other in joy. In London, hackers high-fived as they realized their efforts had paid off. And in Los Angeles, civilians emerged from hiding, cheering and embracing one another as the threat vanished. But amidst the relief and jubilation, there was also sorrow. Entire cities lay in ruins, and millions of lives had been lost. The cost of victory was staggering, and the scars would take generations to heal. Yet even in the face of such devastation, there was hope. Humanity had proven itself capable of standing together, united against an overwhelming foe. In Nevada, Dr. Carter sank to her knees, overwhelmed by exhaustion and emotion. Captain Harper knelt beside her, placing a hand on her shoulder. "You saved us," he said simply. Carter shook her head. "Not me. All of us. Together." As dawn broke over the horizon, the survivors of Earth began the long process of rebuilding. The battle was over, but the war for recovery had only just begun, and though the future was uncertain, one thing was clear. Humanity had faced extinction and triumphed. The aliens weren't expecting humanity to fight back so fiercely. They had assumed Earth would crumble under their initial assault, that humans would be too scared or disorganized to mount any real resistance. But they were wrong. Across the globe, people refused to give up. Soldiers, scientists, and even ordinary civilians banded together, determined to protect their planet. And while the aliens still held the upper hand, cracks were beginning to show in their seemingly invincible force. In Colorado Springs, Lieutenant Samantha Brooks and her surviving pilots returned to base after destroying the alien ship. There, victory was small compared to the scale of the invasion, but it proved something important. The aliens could be hurt. As Brooks climbed out of her jet, her legs wobbled slightly from exhaustion. Her face was streaked with dirt and sweat, but her eyes burned with determination. She knew this wasn't over, not by a long shot. "Good work out there," said Jake Miller, approaching her with a clipboard in hand. "But we've got more incoming." Brooks nodded grimly. "How many?" "3 ships heading this way," Miller replied. "They're moving fast." Brooks took a deep breath. Her team was battered, low on fuel, and running out of weapons. Still, she couldn't afford to hesitate. "Get everyone ready," she ordered. "We'll hit them as hard as we can and buy Dr. Carter more time." Meanwhile, deep beneath Cheyenne Mountain, Dr. Emily Carter and her team worked frantically to prepare the quantum annihilator for deployment. The device hummed loudly now, its energy levels climbing steadily. Lights blinked rapidly on its surface, and the air around it crackled with electricity. Carter adjusted dials and checked readings, her hands trembling slightly despite her focus. "We're almost there," she said to Rachel Kim, who stood nearby holding a tablet. "Just a few more adjustments." Kim glanced at the screen, then back at Carter. "What happens if it doesn't work?" Carter paused, considering the question. "Then we lose everything," she said quietly. "But I'm not going to let that happen." Outside the lab, Captain Daniel Harper waited anxiously. He had been tasked with delivering the quantum annihilator to a secure launch site in Nevada. Time was running out, and every second counted. If the device wasn't deployed soon, Earth wouldn't stand a chance against the alien fleet. "How much longer?" Harper asked one of the engineers guarding the entrance to the lab. "Not long," the engineer replied. "Dr. Carter says another 30 minutes. Harper clenched his jaw. 30 minutes might as well have been an eternity. Alien drones buzzed overhead, their mechanical whirring growing louder by the minute. Ground troops were advancing too, forcing Harper's team to fend off wave after wave of attacks. Supplies were dwindling, and morale was low. Still, Harper refused to give up. He thought of his wife and daughter, safe, or as safe as anyone could be, in a hidden bunker miles away. Protecting them, protecting everyone, was worth any risk. Back in Washington, D.C., President Laura Hayes convened another emergency meeting with General Matthew Cole and other top advisors. Maps and live feeds covered the walls of the situation. Room, showing the ongoing battle between humans and aliens. Red dots marked areas hit by alien attacks, while green dots represented human resistance efforts. So far, the red dots outnumbered the green ones, but the tide was slowly turning. "We've got reports of civilian militias forming in Los Angeles," Cole said, pointing to a cluster of green dots on the map. "They're using whatever weapons they can find, guns, knives, even Molotov cocktails. They're slowing the aliens down." Hayes nodded, though her expression remained grim. "Good. Every little bit helps. What about Project Sentinel?" Cole hesitated. "Dr. Carter says the quantum annihilator is almost ready. Another hour, maybe 2. Hayes sighed heavily. "That's cutting it close. Can we hold them off until then?" Cole studied the maps again. "It'll be tight, but we can try. We need to create distractions, draw their attention away from Colorado Springs." Hayes thought for a moment, then made her decision. "Do it. Use decoy missiles, false signals, whatever it takes. Buy Dr. Carter as much time as possible." Across the Pacific Ocean, General Cole put his plan into action. Fleets of submarines equipped with nuclear warheads emerged from the depths, targeting several alien cruisers hovering near Hawaii. Decoy missiles launched simultaneously, creating confusion among the alien ranks. The aliens, believing they were under attack from multiple directions, split their forces to investigate. It worked, at least for a while. Several alien ships turned toward the decoys, leaving others vulnerable. In Tokyo, scientists seized the opportunity to activate enhanced EMP systems, disrupting alien communications and causing additional chaos. In London, hackers continued infiltrating alien networks, jamming signals and disabling drones. These small victories bought precious time for Dr. Carter and her team. Inside the lab, Carter and Kim worked tirelessly to complete the final adjustments to the quantum annihilator. The device was nearly ready, but there was still one major hurdle: transporting it safely to the launch site. With alien forces closing in, getting the device out of Cheyenne Mountain would be nearly impossible. "We need a distraction," Carter said, glancing at the security cameras showing hordes of alien ground troops advancing on their position. Harper overheard her and stepped forward. "I'll handle it," he said firmly. "You focus on finishing the device. My team will hold them off." Carter opened her mouth to protest, but Harper cut her off. "There's no time to argue. Just do your job." With that, Harper led his remaining soldiers outside to confront the alien forces. Armed with experimental weapons and sheer determination, they formed a defensive line, firing relentlessly at the advancing troops. Explosions lit up the night sky as grenades detonated and energy beams clashed. Harper's team fought valiantly, buying Carter and her engineers the time they needed. Back in the lab, Carter and Kim worked feverishly to finish the quantum annihilator. Finally, after what felt like hours, the device was ready. Its energy levels peaked, and the lights on its surface pulsed rhythmically. Carter stepped back, breathing heavily. "It's done," she said, her voice filled with both relief and apprehension. Kim nodded. "Now we just need to get it to the launch site." As if on cue, Harper burst into the lab, his uniform torn and bloodied. "Let's move," he said urgently. "We've cleared a path, but it won't last long." Carter and Kim wasted no time. They wheeled the quantum annihilator out of the lab, following Harper through the chaotic battlefield. Alien drones swooped overhead, firing indiscriminately, while ground troops closed in from all sides. Harper's team provided cover fire, sacrificing themselves to ensure the device reached its destination. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, Harper and his team arrived at the launch site. The quantum annihilator was loaded onto a transport vehicle, which sped toward the designated coordinates. Harper watched it go, knowing this was humanity's last hope. "If this doesn't work," he muttered to himself, trailing off. "It has to," Carter said, appearing beside him. Her face was pale, but her eyes were resolute. "It has to." As the quantum annihilator reached the launch site, preparations began for its activation. Back in Washington, D.C., President Hayes addressed the nation once more, her voice steady despite the weight of the moment. "To my fellow citizens of Earth," she said, her image flickering on screens worldwide. "Tonight, we make our final stand. Tonight, we show the universe that humanity cannot be broken. Hold on. Stay strong. Together, we will prevail." With those words, the countdown began. The quantum annihilator hummed louder, its energy levels reaching critical mass. Humanity held its breath, praying for a miracle. The fate of the world rested on the next 14 minutes.